Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It's CEO time. It's boss time. My goodness, what an episode of AEW. Lots to talk about, too. I like that this episode was not just like a debut and phone it in. There was a lot to talk about outside of the debut. It was a really strong episode all around. We're going to get into all of that. I've got Ryan. I've got Asian Joe, the EVP. I'm just an employee here. What can I say?
You didn't fill anything out, and I said, you know what? Let me do it.
I am hosting in Aunt Money's absence. Anytime I'm here, I'm the CEO, okay? I can't do like a cool dance though, because I'm extremely white. But
awfully bossy.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, Joe, because you might think it's 10:17 Eastern, but it is boss time. But we have a lot to get into. They also just announced Kyle O'Reilly's in-ring return, and I was like, I'm just going to cry all week. Like, I'm just going to be so emotional about wrestling this week, and I'm so excited. But before we dive into anything, fellas, how we doing? How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. Omaha had the number one zoo in the country again.
Congratulations.
Well, I'll take the W.
Yeah, why not? Own it. Omaha is the number one zoo. I always thought that was Newark Airport.
Oh.
I got jokes. I'm swinging early. I might be missing, but I'm swinging early. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good. Philadelphia was not rated the number one zoo in the country.
Wow, in the mud.
I didn't even know they ranked zoos, so there you go.
Well,
but no, I'm good. I'm good. I enjoyed a very, very good night of Dynamite.
It was an excellent night of Dynamite, obviously. The big Mercedes debut coming into play, but a lot of other stuff. We got a world title defense on here, right? We have a setup for what feels like Mercedes' first feud, if not first match. So some really productive use of Dynamite. Got to see Okada in action. Got to get a really fun promo from Will Ospreay, and we're going to get into that. But now that Mercedes is all elite, as the chat is talking about, Greg Cherry saying, hello, lovely people. Mercedes is all elite. It's a wonderful day to see her back on TV. Yes. I know at Fight Club, Sean had said that she was told it was a career-ending injury, and she was like, that's cute. Like, no, it's not. This is not a career-ending injury for me, but I do know it was a multi-surgery injury, which is part of why her healing time took so much time back. And I know it was also reported that she's been on the payroll for a couple months now. She was not cleared. Everybody was fantasy booking her being in Rumble. People were fantasy booking matches of her versus Julia in New Japan, and those things just couldn't happen because she wasn't able to wrestle. She was trolling us with her footage from years ago of her training when she was doing all of that. But very, very cool, very emotional night. Business certainly felt like it picked up, man. When she debuted, she was just a star between two beards, saying no Wendy or Marco, but it absolutely ruled. Yeah, there's no Wendy Richter, which I feel like it's upsetting. It's upsetting. I feel like she should be in Mercedes' corner, maybe in her debut match. Maybe that's the way to go. And Marco should be a multi-time champion. Don't even get me started. But let's dive right in, because, listen, I care how these fellas are doing, but we've got stuff to talk about tonight, man. We have so much to discuss. Joe, she's here. We knew that she was going to arrive. My first reaction was, one, this is an unprecedented debut for a women's talent. And that's not to say that the debuts of other women's talents haven't been great. They did some really cool stuff with Jade in the Rumble. We've seen people debut in Rumbles before, right? Like, this was almost a mirror of what they did with CM Punk. Scaled down a little bit, because I don't think you can really compare like an injury absence to a 7-year absence of someone just not being there. But even the way it was filmed, I'm so glad the tunnels are back. The stage looked great. When she walked out there, man, you were like, a star has arrived. Everything about her presence. I thought she did great on the mic tonight. She looked way more relaxed than I would assume somebody would in that position. Her gear was incredible. She just is one of those talents that when they step out from behind the curtain, looks like a star. So that's kind of where I was at. I was like, I haven't seen this happen for a women's talent, mostly because the 4 horsewomen came up through the WWE system, right? You can compare it to the Wrestle Kingdom debut a little bit, I guess, but or not. Was it Wrestle Kingdom? It wasn't Wrestle Kingdom when she debuted in New Japan. But the crowds are so quiet there that it didn't really click in. This felt like a proper, unprecedented debut of a huge star, and her work rate is second to none. So I think the women's division is going to be on fire even more than it is. What were your thoughts, Joe? Because, man, I was blown away.
Yeah, I felt like I forgot how the magnitude of her presence on national television was. Like, she wasn't gone for that long, but it felt like it. And when she appeared, like you said about the CM Punk thing, I think Ryan had mentioned it in the past, it felt like the Punk treatment of as soon as the music hit and like the CEO chants. After the music stopped playing, you hear the crowd chant the CEO, almost in that same beat of CM Punk. Just felt very similar. And yeah, she is a top draw, regardless of promotion, gender, whatever else. I mean, it really is a whole paradigm shift for AEW and for that division.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm so glad you brought up the theme because I thought it was so much fun. We heard her New Japan theme in the past, which had a very different vibe to it. We heard, obviously, the Sasha Banks theme. I loved this because crowds are just going to be chanting CEO for her entire matches with her, I feel like. Ryan, did you mark out for this theme as much as I did? What are your thoughts on this debut? And also, with her now actually being here, what are your thoughts? Because it did feel like when she stepped on TV, I was like, she is a cut above, but I kind of like that they seem to be working her maybe into this mid-card picture because she has this natural story with Willow. We'll talk about that more at the end of Dynamite, but just want to know your thoughts on that.
So I liked the theme. They gave her a chant, which I think is hilarious because if there's no better way, like, not that she needs it, but it never hurts if you want to have someone be the biggest babyface in your company to give them an easily chantable thing. And CEO is just very channel. I mean, Mikey Ruckus nailed it. There's no doubt. I like it better than what she was using in New Japan. I didn't really love her New Japan. It wasn't bad, but I just also though I'm gonna backstep. New Japan's music. I'm blanking on the word here. The way the sound, like their sound.
Yes, very different
Production. It's not as good. You don't hear it.
Yeah.
AEW had that problem at the beginning too. They've gotten way better at it now that you actually hear the music when it comes on TV. So I don't want to completely trash her New Japan music. I may have just not heard it as well.
No, you're right though that this one has some more snap to it because her old one almost reminded me of what would happen when Bray Wyatt's would hit, where you were struggling to hear it. Anything that's that bass heavy or like lower, it's harder to hear in big arenas, and it's definitely harder to hear at home. So I agree with you. This has some more bite to it, and I felt like it went a long way in making her comfortable. Like her just kind of vibing down the ramp to it. Like she really seemed to ease into things. But what else did you think about tonight?
So, I mean, there was a lot. I like that they almost tried to. I can't say swerve because then I get into swerve. I like that they tried to fool us because they had it like so when Punk again. Punk is the best comparison, but oh, Mike Kills in the chat is saying that Rucka said she made her own music. Good for her.
Oh, dang.
She nailed
That's
it.
awesome. She did. She crushed it.
But comparing it to the Punk, because this is the most comparable we've had in wrestling in a long time, because they're two that were promoted weeks out in advance, meant to draw the card themselves without ever officially announcing it. Punk's was a little bit different because it had been 7 years from wrestling in general. Hers is coming back from an injury. It's just a different thing. So the fact that she even got this level is insane because realistically, ignoring the superstar aspect of it, just on the details, she's a wrestler who signed with a new company coming back from injury. She shouldn't have this big of a welcome. It speaks to her
Right.
superstar that she does.
It does, and I'm also so intrigued to see what doors this opens for other AEW stars to maybe go explore some stuff. It seems like MJF has gotten into the acting world a little bit. She's obviously in music and acting, and she's just in really high-profile spots and media. I'm so intrigued to see if anybody else in AEW follows suit, because it does seem like they're trying to maybe expand that way a little bit with the cross-promotional side of it. I've always said, to me, like, WWE missed their biggest star in the women's division with her. You can argue with any of the 4 horsewomen, especially, like that Charlotte Flair is better, or that Becky Lynch is more valuable, or that Bayley gives bigger, like whatever you want to say. I think it's almost inarguable when you're talking about sheer star power. Like Mercedes Moné might be the biggest star in the world on the women's side, especially for that. Like she just, and you saw it tonight, like it before she said a word, you were just like, that is a star. You know it when you see it. And it does feel like the most that we've had. Now, I don't want to compare work rate when I say this, because Jade has been doing this for like a minute and a half comparatively, and Mercedes has been doing this for literally decades, right? I think you're going to see that work rate rise. But you also, I think when Jade debuted and what she evolved into was just like the presence of it all. I don't know if we've had anybody else like that in AEW, man or woman, really, until Mercedes showed up tonight. Because like even Punk's like such a different vibe, right? He's like this gritty Chicago punk ass kid. Like the like hello, a star has arrived thing. Seeing that return tonight, I think, was a big one. And we'll get into the details of what she actually said in her promo as well. But do you guys feel like this might be like a profile raising signing? Everybody's talking about our ratings going to go up or whatever. Like, do you feel like her cross promotional appeal and that just overall star presence, I'll throw it to Ryan first on this, like might kind of elevate AEW in that way?
Yeah. So first, I just want to get back to one point I was making, is that they tried to trick us by having start with Renee in the back, which was different than Punk.
Yes, that was clever.
So they tried to trick us to be like, they're going to make us wait all show, and then they instantly went into it, which I thought was really good. It's tough. Her fans are crazy, and I don't think that's I don't think that's a secret. So you will definitely get a lot of them who were not watching AEW. Some of them were, but there's also a good portion that weren't. They now will. So you'll get something out of that. I don't know if she's an instantaneous boost. She's a long-term investment that will pay off. You're not going to get it's the difference between if you're to use an analogy, if you're trying to think of all right, like that's a bad analogy. Baseball, it's the difference between getting a 40-year-old pitcher who was a Cy Young for one season because you hope to win the World Series,
Sure,
and getting the 32-year-old Cy Young ace, and or maybe not on the cusp of Cy Young, I should say, but they're going to carry you for 3 or 4 years, and that's not a perfect analogy. My point being is she's going to be. She may not instantaneously pop it, but when she's between her matches and then all the press and stuff she's now going to do, because she's marvelous at that, and when she goes to these movie premieres and these TV show premieres and all these things, that's where she starts to pay off. They don't have someone of her, like they have people who go to that stuff, but not at her caliber.
Agreed. And I think almost what you're talking about, we could quantify it even in wrestling world, which I think is that like Adam Copeland was kind of your like older guy, one hit wonder type dude. And Mercedes is going to be in here for a longer haul. And just her work rate is unprecedented. Now, Joe, I also wanted to talk about something that she brought up in her promo, which was her saying that AEW is the only place you can go to be a global CEO. And it's been reported, and it is a priority, that she gets to still continue to work in Japan when she wants to. Obviously, that's built into things from like the Forbidden Door standpoint, and whatever you could see at Wembley. Who knows? Maybe she's going to show up at a Rev Pro show. We don't know. This world is insane, right? So what are your thoughts on that interpromotional aspect? Are you excited to see her continue to work kind of with New Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's working with New Japan, whether it's now their relationship with, down in Mexico with some promotions down there. I don't know what their relationship is with Stardom.
Sure.
I know their
Rossi's
CEO,
done.
he was hanging out backstage.
Sure.
So that's really cool to be able to have that big of a star and be able to have her do cross promotion matches and just build upon women's wrestling, globally. And in addition to talking about what Ryan mentioned about her presence as far as promoting movies and things like that, and TV and Hollywood and that kind of crossover, I think having her on your roster will also help when it comes to negotiating, TV deals and things like that because of her star power and her track record.
Agreed. I think she's a game changer in a lot of ways, and it was very cool to see her make her long-awaited debut. Very, very cool that we got this in general, but in women's wrestling especially. This is a big one. This feels like an important debut, and I also just adore that she's going into this story. It feels like with Willow, or maybe the TBS title for starters. Like that's a fun place to go. But let's talk a little bit more about some other news that broke this week. It was a quieter week with AEW, which was refreshing, to be honest. But we've had so much going on. There's some backstage.
Wait. Before you get to that, maybe you are getting to that, but the Stardom thing that was out there tonight.
Which one?
The president of Stardom was backstage with Tony Khan.
Oh, yes. Sorry, we'll get there.
When we're talking Mercedes and New Japan and all the relationships, it's clear, like not just, I know Sean reported that she can go work New Japan, but I think it's even bigger deal that, not only can she go work, the Stardom's head was there.
Yeah,
Ryan wasn't listening to my talking.
He was so dumb.
I didn't realize you got to that specific. I thought you were being more general with New Japan.
No, I've talked about how, they had the Stardom guy there backstage.
Oh, I didn't. I heard you had the relationship. I didn't hear the specific.
No, he was backstage tonight, which is a big deal for a lot of reasons because Tony Khan has been quiet on Twitter that the Rossi relationship was not great. So I think there's been so much shifting and pretty much everywhere but AEW from the administrative standpoint. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens because there was a period of time a couple years ago where everybody was talking sugar on everyone, right? You had New Japan. It was like everybody but MLW and NWA. Impact was in the mix. With all of these changes, you wonder if those doors are going to reopen a little bit. Hello to additional people in the chat, by the way. Nice to see you, Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's been a minute. Miss you, dude. Hope you're doing well. Scott George coming in. And Mike saying something that I did have in my notes here, that we do have some Stardom talent that were on ROH, which is very cool. So we will see. Got a big Supercard of Honor coming around the corner as well. So who knows? But we did get some backstage reaction on Okada's AEW re-debut is what this was kind of titled. But this is something that I have heard from specifically from people in AEW as well, that I can kind of back up that this is something that they're very, very proud of, to have Okada in the storyline that they're in. They feel like it's a really good move to have such a big star come in right after Sting retires as well. That's a very exciting development out of this. And Tony Khan had the idea as far back as the holidays, which is a pretty fun thing. But once Kenny Omega was sidelined, that was kind of the inspiration for it. So some cool stuff with Okada working AEW heel. We're going to talk about that a little bit as we go on, because, man, I love my Evil EVPs in the match that we got tonight. But some really, really cool stuff there. We've kind of already talked about it with Okada, but we got to see him tonight. So one thing that struck me was his English was fantastic tonight.
I was going to ask about that. Has
he,
like, I'm not trying to. Has he always had English that good of English?
I don't know, because I've never really seen him outside of New Japan. Like it's I haven't seen a context where he's needed to speak English, I don't think, because I was not watching like in his very brief bad Impact run and stuff like that. But we did get to see him at a backstage tonight telling people to sing for Matthew's birthday, not just to wish him a happy birthday, and it was great. He's another one with just unbelievable charisma. This roster right now with Will Ospreay involved, with Okada here, with Mercedes showing up. This is all with MJF on the shelf, Adam Cole on the shelf, Kenny Omega on the shelf. Like, this is a loaded roster.
I thought that
very cool.
In the first hour, we saw Mercedes, Okada, and Ospreay. Like in the first hour, and it blew my mind thinking about the embarrassment of riches that AEW has right now.
Especially with Ospreay advancing a story with Bryan Danielson, right? Like, and Okada being in there with the Young Bucks, who are not slouches in the ring themselves, right? Like, this is a very, very, very stacked roster, and it does make you realize, like, I think right now Drew McIntyre probably wants to resign because he's doing incredible work in WWE, but like, I don't know if they have a spot for that guy. I don't know if they have a spot for Mustafa Ali. Like, they are stacked from top to bottom, because you also don't want to forget about like just work rate guys that are not being used as well. Like, it seems like they're setting up cool stuff for Trent Beretta. We have Roddy Strong as a champion now, and Kyle O'Reilly's back. So like, you don't want those guys to get lost in the mix either. But I don't know if there's room for that many more free agents right now, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. It does make things interesting for what the free agent market is going to be, because WWE has some really big free agents that are going to need to be re-signed. I think they probably will stick the landing with all of them anyway. I think they're people that probably want to stay in WWE. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? We just have this absolutely loaded roster. We're going to have all these crossover shows with New Japan as well for the ones that haven't been poached yet. There's you're going to see Suji, and you're going to see ZSJ, and you're going to see the Bullet Club that is this version of them with the War Dogs. Like, there's going to be some really, really good stuff interpromotionally as well. Mercedes saying it, man. It's the only place you could be a global CEO. But AEW alone right now is stacked.
So this is a conversation we've had a bit, like, at what point do you have too big of a roster? Now, I don't think they're there. Obviously, again, injuries, things like that happen all the time. So you have to have a deep, we've seen it in the past with wrestling. AEW had it for a little while. WWE's had it, where you think they've cut down the roster because they were too many, and then all of a sudden 1 or 2 injuries happen, and you're extreme. You find out how shallow you are. That being said, I will die on this hill. If they used the trios division better, and the tag even, but especially the trios division, you don't really have this issue. If you make the trios important, you're using 6 guys per match. That's 6 guys a night. You're using 6 guys in one feud. You're able to spread things out. It just, to me, and then that leaves you room to sell. I mean, to not sell, to be on the market for more. That being said, of course, there's money involved. I'm not Tony Khan. I will never claim that. I'm running under the assumption that just purely from a booking fan standpoint, not a monetary, because at some point you do think you have to be like, all right, I've got enough. Like,
rated in, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, if they use the trios and the tag better, especially the trios, because I think they are going to rebound the tag with this tournament. But if they use the trios better, then you don't have that problem, because you got 6 guys tied up constantly, more than 6.
I agree. And this feels a little different to me than talent hoarding, which is what WWE was doing during the pandemic a little bit. Talent hoarding to me says, I'm going to sign guys and have no intentions of using them just so the other place doesn't get them. I don't think either company is operating in that mode right now. WWE is absolutely white hot. They are killing it right now as far as selling out everywhere that they go to. The product is doing super well. Obviously, there is a huge overarching cloud covering everything they're doing right now. Some very important names.
Finishing that story.
Finishing that story, but some very important names getting named as key executives in the lawsuit is what I was referring to there. That is not great. They're going to have a lot of work to do, but I think it's a really good thing that both of these rosters are so full, because I think it's going to force the indies to step up. I think TNA is doing some interesting stuff. I think you got Nick Nemeth, who's kind of running territories right now, which is super fun. Matt Riddle can go fuck himself. But other than that, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Joe, any thoughts on these embarrassment of riches of rosters? And also, we've got some guys on the shelf that are going to be coming back, right? We know where Kenny Omega's coming back in. We probably know where MJF is coming back, right? That's probably going to be for Wardlow. We got Pac back. We've got Kyle O'Reilly back. We are cooking right now, man.
All I can think of is that it's a good idea that Tony had brought more people onto creative to help with, so many storylines for all his talent. So they're not just having random matches, but they can be in meaningful stories. I think that'll be important to keep people happy and engaged. And, we can mix them, like Ryan said, tag teams and trios, move some people around on ROH to help maybe, boost ROH a little bit more.
Sure.
There's just a lot of things you can do, I think, with build up Rampage, and you have 5 hours of TV on national TV plus ROH. So
yes, they do. It's a good point. There's enough TV hours for all this talent, that's for sure.
To a point Joe just made that was really good was they brought in writers to help Tony, and one of those writers is a former, I don't know was or is, I don't know how it works when you win an Emmy, won an Emmy for writing.
An Emmy award-winning writer. Yeah.
Thank you. I forget her name already. I'm bad with names, but I knew it was something like that. I was gonna say Pepper Jack, so I'm glad I didn't.
Pepper Ann.
But being that she wrote on regular TV, and she's an Emmy winner, I'm hoping maybe she can get into, because the one complaint I have against for most wrestling across the board is they either shove the story down your throat week after week after week, or they let it go far too long. Like you get it 1 week and then it's 6 months later that they continue to tell. I'm hoping maybe she can help them pace it, because I don't need to see Swerve and Joe I can fine with seeing the wrestlers, but I don't necessarily need to see that story every week. You can give me 1 week or give it to me, then you could spread it out, and that also leaves room for more talent, because now you can tell someone else's story in that time. So hopefully maybe she can help, and it's something that not many do well. It's the bane of wrestling. They tend to run a hot story every company tends to run a hot story into the ground because it's hot. So you just put it on week after week. It's like you can get you watch Game of Thrones or any of those shows. There's a week off sometimes between someone's storyline and the next person's.
Sure.
And no one complains. No one's like, oh, I didn't see this person this week. No, they're building.
I think part of what's tricky with that now is when it was just Dynamite, that was really easy to do. But now you're asking people to then keep track of 10 hours of television instead of 5, because you are giving everybody an off week. So I think that gets tricky, because if you can't give people so many things to try and keep track of. But we are going to go ahead and let you guys know about some other fantastic shows on the Shining Wizards network right now. We are a part of a bigger network than us. We had wonderful interviews with Heidi Howitzer and Casey Catal on the Shining Wizards network this past 2 weeks. So really, really good
stuff.
Isn't it
Howitzer?
Sure.
Like the gun?
I don't know gun brands that well.
You're making fun of me. You make fun of my pronunciation.
I make fun of your accent. I was just wrong, but either way. Some really great interviews coming out of the Shining Wizards podcast specifically, but we are one small part of a fantastic network for the Shining Wizards. There's plenty of shows that you can learn about, and we are going to go ahead and throw it to the commercial as soon as Ryan is ready.
I'm ready. I was waiting for you to do your pitch. That was all.
Every one of you for tuning in every Monday night to listen to The Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is The Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the squared circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
You like your music heavy? Then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, we've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is Radioactive Metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway!
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums,
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at Mark Order Pod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
we will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down-under-pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Your Duke and Road podcast. They're funny guys. That I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, to Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast from two men, Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right? And who better to talk about a man's sport than Oklahoma?
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Oh, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the Your Duke and Road podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit. Slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shine.
My computer always delays the unmute by so much. It's so annoying. But we're here. We're back. Those were the wonderful shows on the Shining Wizards Network. Please go and check those out. Support this great network that we're a part of. And of course, support the Shining Wizards as well at Wizards Podcast. They're doing their WrestleMania Madness tournament bracket, which is super fun, where they're just kind of comparing which WrestleMania was better up through a couple of different divisions. So participate in that. I've been retweeting it if you're interested in that. It's been really fun to see kind of what ones shake out. There's some that are close and there are some that are absolute landslides because there's been some stinkers of WrestleManias, but a really, really fun thing that they're doing over there with the Shining Wizards. But if you're like, I want to support this specific brand, this is the A show. This is the only show that actually matters, okay? This show is the CEO of the Shining Wizards Network, okay? They're like, CEO. You can do that by heading over to ProWrestlingTees.com and searching for the Mark Order podcast. We've got 4 beautiful t-shirts waiting for you right there. 2 double-sided. You've got our logo. Take it up your whole chest if you want to take up your whole chest, all right? You got our font, just your regular ones, and then a little pocket size one, which is my favorite. It's all cute little Mark Order shirts. So please head over to Pro Wrestling Tees and pick one of those up or add those to your order and keep us in mind. It helps us out a lot. We do appreciate it so much when you are able to help us out. But we'll take all sorts of support, including leaving us a 5-star rating on any platform that you choose to listen to us. But truly, what are we doing if we're not listening on YouTube? Okay, Ryan has his backgrounds every week. He's currently at the head of a very corporate table as we're celebrating the CEO tonight. There are too many bits. The last thing you want to do is miss one of Ryan's tribute face painting episodes. Is it fair to call that an episode?
I'm still in shame about that one.
For shame, but a fun attempt and a fun episode on our prediction show. So check us out on YouTube if you would be so kind. If you are on YouTube, please leave a thumbs up on this video. It helps people find us in the algorithm. But fellas, we should dive into some AEW big business in Boston that we had tonight. What an episode it was. Let's get overall thoughts. I really appreciated because Mercedes didn't go out there and do like a 40-minute segment, right? She said her piece. Everybody knew she was coming. She had a spot at the end that we're going to talk about as well. So she bookended the show. This was not like when we had a 1-hour Rampage or whatever, and CM Punk took up 35 minutes, and I have no idea whatever else was on the show. This had a full gusto of a killer episode behind it, which I really liked, because there's a lot going on in AEW world right now. You don't want to drop the ball with Okada and Will Ospreay in your world title picture just because someone's debuting, right? So, Ryan, what were your thoughts of the episode overall? Obviously, a huge takeaway with Mercedes debuting.
I loved this episode. This was really good. I mean, they, like you said, I mean, Punk had the thing where it was Rampage, so he was going to carry that no matter what, and they weren't going to count for much else because Rampage wasn't getting much else. But I actually think it's a compliment to Mercedes that they loaded up the card. They said, like, yeah, you coming here is the reason we know we're probably gonna have some eyes on this that aren't typically on us. Let's make sure we give them some idea of what we offer here. And I think they loaded up the card. Now I'm gonna say I was gonna bring it up later, but it kind of fits now. I want to point out something. Mercedes addressed Willow. They made sure Willow was in the main event.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling a wrestler of a smaller stature.
Yes. I don't think any of that was unintentional.
That's what I'm saying. I think that was a very smart move to be like, we're putting you all, we're going to mention her. If you're a Mercedes fan, but you're new to AEW, we're going to have her mention Willow, who you would have known anyway through New Japan, but we're going to mention she's here, and we're going to put her in the main event so that it made Willow. I mean, Willow didn't really need to be, but I think you put her in a new stratosphere now because she main evented Dynamite, and Mercedes, that was her call out.
Agreed. It was that thing of who are the first words out of your mouth when you are a superstar and you show up somewhere, right? But Joe, what did you think overall of tonight's episode? I thought it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was one of those episodes that flew by for me. I think maybe a few fleeting moments of the episode, I kind of lost my interest a little bit, but other than that, it was
the Jericho part. You can say it. You can say the Jericho parts. It's okay.
Well, spoiler alert. Come on. It was a bathroom breaker, so it was good. But yeah, I mean, it was booked in well. I like the fact that they let Mercedes come out and, she gave her promo. I think you get 5 minutes for every year you're away from wrestling. That's why Punk had 35 minutes.
That's fair.
But I'm glad she got to speak her promo without doing the usual trope of having someone interrupt her and having that be the feud right away. We got to see that a little bit more toward the end of the night instead. So that kind of, you kind of got the best of both worlds with her debut. And everything else in between, I mean, we had some other women's wrestling involvement later in the middle with Deanna and that storyline. So I can't. I have no qualms.
Yeah, this was a strong one, and you're right. I like that there was Mercedes said her piece, and then she was kind of like, let's get to work, which I think is good considering how long she was injured. I think it was the right call to wait until she was cleared. But as Ryan pointed to earlier, the show kickstarts with Renee backstage talking about what's happening tonight, kind of as a fun little misdirection maybe. You get a car speeding by her, and the door opens, but nobody is shown. And then you have the CEO making her debut, very similar to Punk, in my opinion, of the way this was done with like the slight delay before everything kind of happened. The way that they were filming the crowd, like really, really felt very similar, which you should do because that was iconic debuts are good. So don't screw up the formula if you got them, right? Gets this huge reaction in her hometown. She says her heart's beating out of her chest here and thanks the crowd for sticking with her through the highs, lows, and the titles and the moments, and that they're going to create so much magic together. She gives a nod to Eddie Guerrero for giving her a place to believe that she could do it. And she learned that she could do it too. Her dreams allowed her to lead a revolution and become the first woman to main event a pay-per-view. She says, if she can do it, then everybody else can follow their dreams too. And all I could think about was Allie Albright. sweet Allie of the Cease twins, who is inspired so much by her and her work, and that match meant so much to her specifically when she made Evented with Bailey, right? And this is kind of, because women's wrestling is on such an upswing, I think you're going to see a lot of Allies. You're going to see a lot of people that are inspired by the Mercedes of the world. And we're going to talk about the fact that Sky Blue and Julia Hart are involved with Mercedes and what that means for these very young ladies. But then she says the line that I liked the most, which is that AEW is the only place where Evolution can be made global, and she's the one to make that happen. She calls out Willow Nightingale, as Ryan also said earlier, and says that they have unfinished business, and tells everyone that she's the CEO. That was the recap of her promo. I can't say enough. Go watch the moment. You have to see it. I can tell you everything that happened, but you have to feel this one. This was a really happy, emotional thing to see her arriving here in AEW. But Joe, we talked about this pretty extensively at the beginning of the show. Anything specific in the promo that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think she hit on all the points you should hit on when you debut, as far as, thanking and being grateful, being appreciative, laying out your objectives, and I think it did what it needs to do to establish herself in AEW now.
I agree, and I liked that this didn't take up a ton of time. Like I found that really refreshing, because a lot of these, they'll be very emotional, but they'll go on for so long. That she kind of just came in, said what she wanted to say, took in the crowd a little bit, vibed. There's something really special with Mercedes in particular. You saw it in the moments with Bianca Belair when they made events in Mania, saw all these things. She's so much presence and star power, and then you'll see her authentic emotion sneak through, and it's really beautiful, because it's like it almost can't be contained in that way. And that was something that stuck out in this promo to me too, just seeing her reacting to everything that was happening. Brian, did you kind of feel that, like she's got her little dance, she's got her little CEO bop, and then you would see these moments where she was getting kind of teary-eyed and overwhelmed? And anything else that you wanted to add about this promo as well?
So I did. You definitely saw her as she went to speak stop, and sometimes there's two times that wrestlers stop. It's because there's a chant that's so dominant that they let it take over, and then there's because whatever they're hearing is caught them. And it definitely felt like, at least what I've seen more with the latter, which is the moment caught you and you didn't expect it to.
Yes.
It's got to be weird, because again, we kind of covered this in we talked about it before the break. She's been out for how long was it total from her
Like
injury?
9 months, probably 10 months, maybe.
So not, and I'm not knocking her, but not even a year. And this is the reception she gets. I mean, it wasn't there was the reception of like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, kind of like, I hate to say it, like Okada got, like, this is awesome. This amazing wrestlers in this new company. This reception was like, oh my God, thank God you're here and back. And that's a different level of reception. And for only 9 months, I think that would get you, like, they missed having you on TV and hadn't been that long.
I think it's that combo, is what you just said, of it's not often that, because of the way that Western wrestling traditionally has worked, right? You don't normally get, I got injured and then I just wasn't in that company anymore, which is kind of what we got here. Like, she didn't have dates to pay off. They're not counting injury time against her on her contract. Like, you didn't have that. So not only was she injured, but her next move was to show up at a different company. And I think that made this such a unique set of circumstances. Is, yes, I'm back from injury, but my first move is to show up somewhere else, is unique to the current wrestling landscape for sure. For sure. So after that very, very, very cool opening to Dynamite, God, I love Samoa Joe, man. I don't know what to tell you other than, like, this guy calling out Wardlow, saying that things are like about money today and about business, and that Wardlow, a lot has changed around here, but Wardlow hasn't changed, and that lesser men are still sending him to pay for crimes he didn't commit. Like, what the fuck? This guy's promos are so good. Just this, like, especially coming right on the heel of the Mercedes thing, it was kind of like, and now we're getting into the episode. I really felt like it was Swerve's time, but I said it and I'll repeat it. I am not at all mad that Samoa Joe is still your champion. Like I felt like it was Swerve's time to be champ, but like it's not like they made a mistake by leaving it on Samoa Joe, because this guy just is a fucking champion every time he walks out there. Like this was such a short promo, but it completely set the tone of Mercedes is going backstage now, and here's the rest of your episode of Dynamite to me. And I thought it was kind of a ballsy call to put this right after the Mercedes thing. I thought they would go into like a down moment, but they go right into a title match, which I thought was a ballsy little choice of them. But I loved the Samoa Joe promo. I'm going to take us right into the match because there wasn't a ton to say about it, but I'll let you guys gush over it later if you want to, like I did. But we do have Samoa Joe with a really fun finish that we don't get to see a lot because Joe's not usually picking on guys closer to his side. He just jumps on Wardlow. Wardlow lifts Joe and power bombs him, and he goes for another, and Joe reverses it and sets in the Coquina clutch. We also get a counter to the walkaway spot, which is simply Wardlow psyching him out. Commentary doing a great job on this, saying these guys are so familiar with each other because of that ROH title feud. They faced each other a ton of times. I'm still emotionally processing the counter of the walkaway spot. But I love that there was that bit of storytelling in there and that extra psychology in this. Just really, really productive stuff, I felt like, for Wardlow. We knew he was going to lose, but this was one of my favorite matches of his. And I think it was fun to have Wardlow and Samoa Joe in the ring again. So much of the stuff was like triple threats and kind of wonky with the ROH stuff. This is a different version of Wardlow. This is a world champion Samoa Joe. I thought this was super, super fun. I love me a Samoa Joe and Zaguri too. My goodness. Like just some fun stuff. He does basics very well because he's such a big dude. But Brian, we'll start with you. Any thoughts on that quick promo we got? I thought it was such a tone setter. And then this really fun world title defense.
So I liked the quick promo. Like you said, you kind of described it. Joe just nails it. He knows what the assignment is and he gets an A on it every time. It was weird placement, but I think it was good placement. I think it was kind of like you knew you had viewers from Mercedes, probably some that weren't, you weren't put a title match on. And it was kind of an interesting title match because you have Samoa Joe, who was, again, if you're thinking you might have former WWE fans now tuning in for the first time, he's recognizable.
For
and
sure.
You have a big guy who would look perfect in WWE. So in a weird way, you had like these perfect
retention flavors of
Yes, exactly. So I that was really smart. I liked the match. I think I was shocked it was clean. That was kind of like one of those things that I wasn't sure how they'd go with it. I like that Wardlow looked good. I think this was important for Wardlow. He actually had a good title match where he looked. I think the annoying thing with I would have with Wardlow is a lot of his losses always felt like he was winning and then he lost. He was winning and then he lost. And Joe, I mean, don't get me wrong, Wardlow got in his offense and kicked ass at times, but Joe also took it to him. And it makes Wardlow more interesting to me. Like there's more of it doesn't feel the same. It's a new story, and I really enjoyed that.
I agree with you, and it's also a fun thing to put in Samoa Joe's title reign because you had Hook, who was lost in the shuffle, and then they kind of made into a star in that match. Even more so than he was. I think it was really productive loss for Hook. You had the triple threat with two of the biggest stars in the company that don't need the rub, but you had this really incredible story. And now we're back into something where it's like, what's a productive loss for Wardlow actually look like? Probably picking on someone his own size. And now, Joe, I want your thoughts on this quick promo in the match, but also, like, where do we think Wardlow goes from here is something I've been hearing a lot of because some people thought MJF was coming back tonight. I think it's way too soon for that. And I think he's got some unfinished business with some other devils probably ahead of time. But also Wardlow doesn't really fully fit into this Undisputed Kingdom thing. It's kind of more of the enemy is my friend. So maybe his losses are what starts to splinter Wardlow from the Undisputed Kingdom. I'm kind of interested to see where this goes, but what were your thoughts on the promo of the match and where Wardlow goes next?
I'm lockstep with you both about the promo. Joe did great. Also did a great job of no.
Is that just because he's a fellow Joe?
Well, right. Joe stick together. Whether from the Samoas or the Asias.
Of course.
No, but it was a good promo. Plus, he kind of built up Mercedes' debut, kind of slipping in words about being big business and things like that. It was an odd placement for a world title match. I'm sure people who are old school wrestling fans will probably be shaking their fists, wondering why you have a world title match. Pretty much being the second thing in the ring on the card. But I think that it goes to tell you the importance and the influence and impact of the Mercedes debut and how respected that is, where you can put the world title match second, basically. I'm glad they got this match done on Dynamite and they didn't carry it out to a pay-per-view or anything. Play that off that Wardlow won his shot, got his chance, came up short. Joe beating him clean was impressive. And I think that, obviously Joe will carry on to Swerve and Wardlow can kind of go on to his next story of what happened to him now that he failed to bring the title back to the Undisputed Kingdom. They were touting that he was going to bring it back to Adam Cole and to that faction. And I think because of his failure in doing so, I think you do have that dissension among that faction with him because he is kind of the odd man out. The only reason he was there is because, like Adam Cole said in his story time leading up to the match about how basically they came together because they both had a common enemy.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to.
And so I think my fantasy booking would be that eventually Kyle O'Reilly comes in, takes over his place, and Kyle O'Reilly realizes that he needs people, that maybe he can't do things on his own, and they jump Wardlow out. That's
Could
my
be.
hopes.
Could be. I don't hate that at all. But much like he needs people, we also need people. Like Jesse Ozog in the chat. Hi, Jesse Ozog. I'm just going to keep waving because that makes Ryan has to do this face.
Yeah, Ryan looks like Walter from Jeff Dunham's Puppet.
He does. I was thinking the same thing. That was such a Walter face.
It's just back. Yeah.
Also, hi, Kaden. Nice to see you. I don't know what your comment means, but I hope you're having a good day. I don't know who that is.
I don't either.
I know who Sean is because he's my boss, but we'll move on to man. Oh, man. This was when it started to hit me because I knew we had Ospreay coming up next because commentary told us. And I was like, we just went from Mercedes to the world title match to Okada to Bruv in an hour. But right here, we get the Elite versus Pac, Penta, and Eddie Kingston. And oh, man, did I miss seeing Pac on my screen. Having him back for the two matches, we've got him back. Oh, my word. He is so much fun to watch in there. Very, very happy for him. But this was a blast of a trios match. This is the most fun the trios picture has felt in a long time, and it has nothing to do with the titles. So in this, we get a finish where we have the official getting distracted and Nicholas throwing a low blow to Kingston, which sets up the Rainmaker for Okada. Nothing surprising about the booking of who won, but this was a very, very fun match. I'm so glad Pac is back. He's so crisp in there. He has such creative ways of delivering moves. There are certain wrestlers when they do something, it's theirs. The way Pac throws strikes, for example, that he's the only guy that throws them the way that he does, I feel like. There's all these specific things. I can never say enough about his selling. I think it's become a meme at this point about how good he is at selling DDTs and stuff. Eddie Kingston, obviously one of my favorites, but in matches like this too, he's just such a fun storyteller. There's something about, I love Eddie Kingston in a singles match, but Eddie Kingston in a multi-man match, when he's out, you're watching this great action. When he comes back in, you can feel all of the I was out of the ring frustration from him, which is so much fun. But I loved this, man. This episode of Dynamite was great from start to finish. And to have this come after a world title match and preceding Will Ospreay. My God, like the fact that this is just a free TV episode is bananas to me. Joe, we'll start with you this time. What did you think of this little trios match?
Very fun trios match, and before that, even started with the backstage with the EVPs and Alex.
Yes, of course.
I appreciated Matt Jackson's best boss mug. That was a nice little touch. He had his little best boss coffee mug.
He did, very a la The Office.
So,
Ryan, if you could tend to the chat, there's some weirdness happening.
Oh Jesus!
But yes, we did get a vignette that we talked about a little bit at the top of the show, but not here. So thank you for reminding me. But mostly the net gain of this was it's Matthew's birthday. So happy birthday to our EVP Matthew. And also everybody was like, Okada's English is phenomenal. And his timing is great. Like he's walked into this character, in my opinion, so perfectly. Like talk about understanding the assignment, but continue, Joe. I forgot to recap that. Thank you.
I have a couple of spots, if I may.
You absolutely can call out whatever spots you want.
This one, like you said, seeing Pac backpacking back in the ring, looking as crisp as he did. I mean, that was amazing. And him and Penta taking turns, like super kicking Matt. It was just so much fun just watching him go back and forth and finding different ways of, holding Matt's leg and each one taking a turn. Matthew.
Thank you. Yeah, we still respect the AVPs around here.
Matthew Jackson. And then Eddie's chops tonight were just they had some extra stank on them. Like he was chopping the hell out of Okada's chest.
What happens when you work out with Cesar Bononi or whatever? He's been doing the cable rows and stuff. He's working out. He's getting some extra stank on those chops for sure. And I think he's got a bone to pick with Okada.
I feel like he really cranks it up a notch whenever he goes against New Japan people.
He's like
really
a strong
like
style bitches. Let's go. Yeah.
But Okada's work as a heel so far has been perfect. His character work, outside the ring plus inside the ring, and the Rainmaker he hit on Eddie was, far superior to the one that he hit last week. So it looked nice, crisp, clean.
It did. He looked great. Very fun stuff. And you're right. I feel like Eddie does fighting spirit, bitches. Let's go. Like, let's lay in our shit for real, though. Ryan, your thoughts on this backstage interview that I totally remembered to recap and this match?
I mean, I really think your recap says it all. So,
I mean, it
no,
did.
I mean,
I got around to it.
Again, we did talk about how good the English was. So, like, that was
yes.
That's what I took away from it, and not that it matters. It's just shocking. And AEW doesn't really matter if your English is that great, so I didn't care. But I was just more surprised for a guy who'd spend his entire time in Japan.
I think that's how a lot of people felt. A lot of people were like, I didn't know that because I never saw it because I never had to because this dude was in Japan. But yeah, agreed.
So the match was really fun. I mean, listen, you have 6 of the best at it. These are all top level wrestlers. Very interesting styles though, because if you think about it, you have both sides had between Penta and Pac, you had, and then the EVPs. You had these like hyper athletic guys who could do a lot of cool things, and then you had Okada as like, I don't call him technical, but like he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, like kind of technical. Then you just have a bruiser in Eddie Kingston, like just an interesting clash of 3 different styles that went into this match. This wouldn't have been for the trios belt, but just imagine if like this was part of a trios division where like they were working towards a trios belt. Suddenly things would matter a whole lot more. Suddenly Okada and the EVPs might be looking at Switchblade and the Guns or whoever's with it because Juice is out. But like all of a sudden you get Switchblade and Okada looking at something. Like there's a whole story there that you have developing. And it's because I just truly believe that they're going to take the belts from the Acclaim, but that's a whole different story.
Freaking hope so.
But yeah, so though I do think it's interesting that Okada is going for a belt already.
Yes, I think if there's anyone who should walk in and lay claim to a belt immediately, Okada's the guy, especially because the Triple Crown includes a New Japan belt. It kind of feels like something. It's a little bit more earned right there. But it is interesting because he's straight up in a trio. So him going for the Continental Crown is kind of a wild call.
But is he going for all three or just one? Just one, right?
Just one, yeah.
It's
Which
interesting.
I didn't realize that was a thing, but
I don't.
supporting it.
They've been very, very muddy about that. They've been very, very muddy about it because depending on which commentary team it is, will tell you different. But I wish there was extreme clarity around that because that would be nice. But the Elite picking up the W here. Well, bruvs, it's Will Ospreay's turn on the mic, and if you're not excited for wrestling watching Will Ospreay, I don't know what to tell you, because when he's in the ring, he is a giant 8-year-old on the mic in the best way possible. When he's wrestling in the ring, he is the best wrestler in the world. There's not a time this guy's on my screen right now that I'm not like just absolutely jazzed that he's here, but he is super pumped to be in Boston. There's a bruv chant, which delighted him to no end. He says that the match with Danielson is one that he's always wanted and that he's followed Danielson's entire career and he's always left it in the ring, which I thought was all good, kind of standard fare. But what he really gets into, which is great, is he says that the match that he had against Kenny Omega, everyone was talking about one thing, and that was Tiger Driver. And what I love about that is it's extremely true. Because when I went into the scrum, that's all anybody was asking about. And Danielson in real life did say, you know, is it worth it? There was a time in his career that he probably would have said yes, but now is it worth it? And Ospreay bringing that into fair play here, I think is super fun. And he says, hell yeah, it was, man. Bruv, it was so worth it. And then he says the coolest thing that you could probably say in Will Ospreay's position right now. He said everybody's talking about the phrase that's followed him, restore the feeling. And he says, I am the feeling, bruv. Damn, is that awesome. I love that he said that. So we're just coming down the mountain here with this Danielson and Ospreay program for Dynasty, which I think is super, super interesting. He kind of says here, this is best in the world right now versus the best of the 21st century, which I think is a really cool way to kind of market this in a sense. Joe, we'll go to you first. This was the nicest promo for me from Will Ospreay. It's so funny to see him he just gets to be this golden retriever right now. Like, he's just so excited.
Will has the energy of the personal trainer that I probably need, but I don't ever want. Like,
touche.
Listening to him, just like listening to him on the mic and then watching him, it makes me exhausted because just like all this high energy. But
just from like even just the theme when he's on the ropes, he's like so Ospreay.
I think it's been really fun to see him out there doing his promos and his matches. It's really building, I think, towards that, summer of Ospreay that I know you kind of alluded to of, him headlining All In and maybe winning a championship at that pay-per-view.
Feels like it. Feels like it should.
I know we have the Ospreay Danielson match coming up next month, and like I kept thinking to myself, I would really want that to be an Iron Man match. I think that'd be really fun.
Oh, that would. I think it's going to be extremely physical just based on the promo he gave tonight. Like, we know about Danielson's history with his neck and his concussions. We know what the Tiger Driver is, right? That definitely feels like they're setting up for something. But Ryan, what did you think of Labradoodle Will Ospreay coming out here tonight? So
I like that you went with the Labradoodle
so
because of the hair.
It is exactly.
Well, he's more like a golden doodle because he's got a golden retriever energy.
He really does.
With the curls. But I also like describing him as an 8-year-old. That was very accurate. What I like is I've seen him be heel before. I've seen him heel more than I've seen him face, to be quite honest, in what I've watched. And he's a very good, arrogant heel. Like, I'm better than you. But this super happy, energetic face. If you had asked me 6 months ago, do I think Ospreay could pull this off? I don't know if I would have said no, but I would have been doubtful because it's so tough to pull off the super happy, high energy face. Like it's a very tough face.
Especially just got here guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's doing it so well. But I think it's because it feels natural. Like, I don't know. I'm assuming it's natural. I mean, if it's not, he's one of the best actors in the world. I mean, because he's putting out a lot of really good energy. His points against Danielson made a lot of sense, and I like that because he's not just like happy to be her face. He's like, no, I have legitimate reasons for what I'm doing, and I'm coming at you because it helps me, and all that's great. So yeah, I was all for the promo. I mean, he had the line that I am the feeling, but he also had the it was like the best wrestler of all time versus the best wrestler of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Something similar. It's greatest wrestler of the 21st century. Like, that's another good line. Like, that's getting
That's
across
the way to
point
market it. That's the way to market it for sure.
So, and then the match happens. Whoever wins. But you have, at least when he comes back, you have Omega, Okada, Switchblade. We'll just start with those. All could say, wait a minute. We've all been in this conversation.
Yeah.
Why are you two labeling yourself this? We've all been here.
Sure. There's going to be some people in New Japan that are a part of that conversation too, right? Like, I think everybody's waiting for next guy up stuff in New Japan, and you got to assume somebody from the War Dogs is coming back for Ospreay after that death match, like whether it's Gabe Kidd or something, like, because let's not forget, Forbidden Door is not all that far away. Like, we go to Dynasty and we move quickly, but I'm so excited. This first hour was just an insane showcase. And Tony Schiavone even said it on commentary of like, this roster is just bonkers. That was my takeaway from all this too. But man, oh man, this was a bunch of fun. And another quick backstage that I really liked, you had Deonna Purrazzo showing up, and she says, well, Tony Storm, if it's a numbers game you want, then let's play, baby. And she says, watch out for the shoe because it's headed straight up your ass. Very fun possibilities here. I think most people are saying if Britt Baker's ready to be on screen again, this could be the spot for her. That would make sense. We know that they've at least been friends and that they wanted a match against each other at different points, but if it's a numbers game you want, that's what you're going to get. I think there could be really fun interplay between what Britt Baker does as a character and what Mariah May does as a character as well. So, Ryan, I'll start with you here. Quick promo, didn't say a ton. She's going to shove the shoe straight up her ass is fun here. But do you think this is Britt Baker, or do you think it might be somebody else?
So I'm predicting Britt Baker. I just think she makes the most sense. Mariah May is... It would serve two purposes. One, storyline wise, it makes sense. You have Deonna calling in a friend they've acknowledged that they're friends and through multiple things. And then you also help put Mariah May at a different atmosphere because now all of a sudden, yes, she's been dealing with Deonna. Yes, she's been dealing with Tony, but her match is going to be Britt. And that puts her up with those guys. She's not just the lackey. She's not just a lackey. She's up at that.
Do you think about this, there's a way it's Thunder Rosa? Is my only other thought?
No, I think she's going LFI.
Yeah, and it does seem like she's almost Collision exclusive. But that was the only other person that I could kind of think of.
I have to laugh though. As I'm watching the promo, all I could think about in my head was who she I want to say this, how Tony Storm would say the words. Like, Tony Storm wouldn't say ass, she'd say something like butthole or box or something and that's all that was going through my head.
Of course,
like, Deonna nailed it. It wasn't an insult to Deonna. It was just funny because I know how Tony Storm would deliver it. That's where my head was getting stuck.
Yeah, Tony Storm would have this would have been a very different promo. But I like that because it keeps the Deonna's trying to pull Tony Storm back to earth angle alive. But Joe, do you think this is Britt Baker? Do you think this is an opportunity for someone else? We haven't seen Megan Bayne yet. I think there's a lot of possibilities. We haven't seen Camille. Camille, I think you almost want to bring in as a solo entity because she had a 500-day reign somewhere else. But any possibilities outside of Britt?
2 words. Wendy Richter.
Ooh, a Wendy Richter tag program. I like where your head's at. Well played. No notes, 11 out of 10. I think you nailed it. We'll move on.
Seems plausible. But nothing beyond the ones that you've mentioned already. I think those make the most logical sense that you've said.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I think
Wendy Richter would be hilarious.
Wendy Richter would be hysterical. It really would. It really would. But she needs a stare down with Mercedes if that happens. So, well, it's time for Jay White to move the fuck up and on because we saw a match between him and Darby Allin, which was my favorite Darby match in quite some time. Always nice to see Jay White in singles action, but this was, I thought, a blast of a match. This ends with Darby Allin just getting back in the ring at the 10 count, but he's immediately dropped with a Blade Runner. But some really, really fun stuff in this. I love when people counter the coffin drop because it looks like just genuinely, it's just a move that's, here's all my weight. Here comes all my weight at you, dead weight flying at you. But when you counter it, if you get the timing right, it looks really, really great because he just used his momentum and turns it into this ridiculous German suplex midair. Really, really clever way to do it. I loved Jay White mocking Sting and then missing with the Stinger splash. Like Darby Allin was like, that's not gonna work on me. I'm not a child around here. Okay. So love what we got there. Great way to send Darby off to literally Mount Everest, which is an insane thing to say, but because there's so much happening in the post-match, we're going to talk about that in a second. I want your guys' thoughts on the match first. Brian, we'll start with you. This was a really refreshing singles outing for Darby Allin from me, and man, they got to make Jay White feel important because he's one of the best to do it.
So before the match started, I had some fear over how do I want to say this? The way it would line it. Sorry, I guess my brain's just not here tonight. The way it'd be, I was afraid it was going to be 2 things that have repeated history: a typical Darby match, which it kind of was a slight bit, but not really. And then I thought it was going to be a repeat of what happened to Jay against MJF.
Sure.
I thought it was going to be Jay loses to a hurt person he should easily beat. What I liked about this is it was kind of a Darby match in the sense that Darby took a hell of a beating and kept just capitalizing on Jay's mistakes, but somehow it felt different. And I think the injury is why it felt different, like the marks, because I think when he does it in a normal match, it just feels like, okay, what are we doing? But here was like, he should not be dominating in this match really for any extended time because he's hurt. So I love that Jay White was beating the hell out of him and then a mistake and he's almost caught. But then Jay back up and doing it again. So I actually really enjoyed that. I think it made Darby look good. I think it made Jay finally look as good as she should. It's he should. Sorry. It's tough because of what happens after. That's where I'm stopping my point because I think he looked like a superstar in this match. He was over. I mean, Darby's over, but Jay was getting just as over, and then the aftermatch happens.
I really appreciate. This felt more like a wrestling match than a lot of Darby Allin matches, and I think people know what I mean when I say that. But what I was thinking about during this is, man, some of my favorite Darby Allin matches are losses. And I remember in that Players Tribune article, he talked about how Sting taught him genuinely so much about the importance of losing and losing the right way. And I felt like a lot of that storytelling came through tonight and the match pacing and the way this whole match was architected. There was no need for Darby to win this. It's going to climb Mount freaking Everest. So Jay White's gotta be the one to get the W here. But Joe, just as far as the match goes, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was good from a storytelling aspect of just, we knew Darby was beat up from everything that happened at Revolution. And so it was really just a matter of, how much can he endure before his body gives up on him. And, when he's taking bumps off of the apron and then spilling onto the floor still with his, a hole in his back opening back up again, and all the other gross things that are coming off his body because of the bandages are coming off. It was just a matter of time, and like Ryan said, being able to see Jay White have that, that vicious heel side of him come out in this was a good reminder of how good he is as a singles wrestler, and of trying to get him back into that mold again. I think this is a good step, and it was a good way to let Darby have some time off.
Agreed. He's got some recovery ahead of him. But this was a refreshing Darby Allin match. I like the matches where Darby feels more like a wrestler. My favorite Darby match in AEW are one of them. The stunts are mind-blowing to me, and I appreciate them. But like him versus MJF at Full Gear 2 years ago is like my favorite Darby match. On a card that had Kenny Omega and Adam Page telling the greatest story of all time, and I think that was Punk and Eddie Kingston as well. I think that match might have been my favorite, and it was the opener, and it was so fucking good, and I think it gets lost for people. But I love when we get to see Darby do some real more wrestling psychology and moves, because I think it makes everything else pop out a little bit more rather than here's an insane spot. Oh my God, he did this thing. Like the contrast is what I really prefer. But post-match, we get Jay White offering his hand to Darby Allin, but as Darby goes to shake it, he changes it to a gun, and the guns attack him. We get one trap of the legs in the chair and a baseball bat, but the Acclaimed coming down, inflicting some damage here, but Jay White nailing Billy Gunn with a chair shot, and you get a very dramatic pause from the Acclaimed, who get left laying as well with the shots from the baseball bat and the titles. And Darby Allin getting dragged back into the ring as they pull his ankle back into the chair, and Jay White slams it on the baseball bat. So, beaten ass, finally. I have mixed feelings about unifying the titles, but it certainly feels like that's what we are heading toward. If they're actually on ROH, that would be great. If they are World Trios titles, since no program can get these fucking things right, that would also be great. I'm in that camp as well. But I have to say, they unified titles with ROH before, and we've seen nothing come out of it for ROH, really. So I think it'll be good. I feel like it's a good way to make the Trios titles feel important again, is to put them on a faction that has Jay White at the head of it. The Guns have come a long way. They don't have to do a whole hell of a lot behind Jay White. But if you want the Trios division to feel important, if you want the Trios titles to feel important, give me that. Give me Okada and the EVPs versus those guys, right? Like, give me them versus House of Black. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that would be incredible. So post-match wise, Ryan, what did you think?
So this is where, I was kind of saying with the Jay White thing, it killed it, because also Bonkers helps the RIP Jackie Crockett, or the Crockett family. So that's sad. But the crowd was very much into the match. The crowd was very much into Jay White, and I'm stressing that because that's very important. And then and they were actually very into what was happening to Darby's ankle. I felt like the crowd there was a noise when they were about to smash the ankle, which before I even get to that, I really appreciate commentary being like, he may not be able to climb Everest with this. Like,
yeah, that was exactly why it was done. Yeah.
I know, we all know he's going away for Everest. But it's just funny that they built it in with the story. That being said, so they're very into these about to get his ankle broken. And I hate that they've gotten to this point. But as soon as the Acclaim's music hit, you could just feel the air get sucked out. And
I feel like they got a pop actually, but I just hate them. So
I don't feel, maybe they did, and later on there was no noise.
I think it wasn't sustained. I think they got the initial their music hit pop, but I think you're right in that.
Which actually will defend my point, which I don't blame the group. I blame that no one's interested in any of the stories they've been in, because they haven't been really in any good stories. And this is a bad one. But I'm just glad they're finally getting, like, just have the blow off one way or another. And this now I'm with you. Take the Trios off the Acclaimed. I don't want them unified, but if you want the Bang Bang Gang to walk around with all of them, fine. But take them off the Acclaimed. Let the Bang Bang Gang start defending them regularly. Let Jay White be the leader of this group and have his awesome portion in these matches. And it make the freaking Dreams division matter.
Yes, agreed. Because we know the rankings don't. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those.
Where are they? So did they, Joe. So did Jay.
Ryan killed them. Ryan killed them.
Ryan killed them. Ryan did his rankings wrap, and we never heard from them again. But, Joe, at least some fucking movement in this picture with our trio styles here.
Right.
Appreciate that from this. And Jay comes out looking like a badass here, which I think is important. The crowd was very on the side of Jay White. What did you think of our post-match?
Well, I think everyone kind of expected kind of the beat down and kind of the way to write off Darby, right? Because like, especially when you have the post match with the handshake offering. I will say I appreciate kind of the subtleties of whether the Acclaimed are going to do, the heel thing or the face thing. I almost thought they were going to help him up and then kick him down because they're wearing all black. They're not wearing their pink gear, and like they're kind of those subtle heel clues that sometimes you see. But them being the faces, yeah, like I'm glad the Bang Bang Gang will be able to take the belt off them, and hopefully we can kind of do some new creative for their claims, whether it's break them up, whether it's give them a different character as far as no more scissoring and all that stuff, make them a more serious threat if you can.
Get rid of Max Caster because he keeps being a piece of shit online. Yeah, like there's a lot of things. There's a lot of options to do. Yeah. I'm with you guys. I'm glad this is finally moving. I was kind of hoping it would be wrapped up before Dynasty, but I was just glad to see there was some movement here. But Joe, I like where your head's at. Well, we move along to Gates of Agony.
It's on his shoulders.
We move along. We move along to Jericho and Hook versus Gates of Agony. And then after that, we get Kyle O'Reilly backstage.
Hold on. My joke is better than what we moved along to. Let's just be fair.
Well, I mean, there it is, Joe. You're setting yourself a very low bar. But it is not even close to a top 10 of worst jokes that you've made on this show. So,
lion hook, lion sinker, lion hook, lion sinker. There we go.
Ooh, there it is.
I'm trying to do my Ryan impression, but it didn't work.
It's okay. You gotta find the moments. They kind of arrive to you. You know what I mean? But we get some man. Khan is like so underrated for how smooth he is in the ring. I feel like he's so good, but some really fun stuff with him and Leona. We got a really cool like tandem offense move from them, but Hook reversing it and locking in the red rum. He pushes Khan into Leona and Jericho pulls him out and into the ring post while they both lock in their submission finishers. Your winners, Hook and Jericho. They're going to be in this tag tournament. I don't want to see them in this tag tournament. I thought the story that they built out for the FTW belt was kind of a cool one of like, I know your father, because they haven't really done that with Hook yet. I do not have a desire to see them as a tag team at all. Congratulations to them for pairing Jericho with someone who's not Sammy Guevara while he's injured. I don't know, but it's just not. They refuse to not have Jericho on TV, and they desperately need to have him off TV to restore his value for a little bit. Like right now, it just feels like everybody that he's supposed to be working with to help elevate, he's now dragging down, and that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But Hook looked great in this. Jericho looked fine in this. Like it was a tag match. There wasn't a ton that needed to get done here, but nice to see Gates of Agony back in action. Sometimes they're in ROH, sometimes they're here. We'll find out, I guess. But Hook and Jericho with the win. Ryan, we'll start with you. What do you think?
So, one, hi JPJ in chat who actually got to go to the show. Lucky him.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Two, so my issue with this has nothing to do with even any of the competitors, really. It's just, again, to me, it's always story. I thought that the Gates of Agony with what they walked out with their their ancestral gear was really cool. It
Yes,
was like a
that
nice
was
touch
really
to
cool. I'm
them.
glad you brought that up because that was badass.
It was a new flavor and a nice touch. Those two are just incredible. They should be in the tag tournament. They're a tag team that I'm like, you're a threat. You put on great matches. I'm all about you. So that sucks that they're not. I'm 100% with you on the Jericho thing. I'm trying to. Every now and again, it happens in wrestling. Every now and again, where for whatever reason, doesn't matter who the wrestler is, it's happened to great ones, it's happened to bad ones, where they get into a thing where no matter what they touch, it doesn't work. They just fans don't want them at the moment. And that is truthfully was happening with Cody a little bit at some points in his AEW run where he couldn't seem to make a story work perfectly. Not quite to this extent. We're not going to go this far, but there was where he just couldn't make a story work the way he wanted. Jericho's just gone beyond that. And like you said, take time for a guy who's notorious for stepping away for a little while and coming back. Take a couple months off. Just a couple months.
Agreed. I remember Sean saying that, like, you had Jericho in a death match and then going on tour and on a boat. Why didn't you have the death match put him out for like an extended period of time, especially since a few of those weeks were taken up, which seems like a pretty fair criticism to me. But I don't know, man. I hate to see someone feel like they're dragging down talent rather than pumping them back up. When you have as much value in your name as Chris Jericho does, and I still believe that he does, and you are the master of reinvention, like, he hasn't sunk his teeth into anything new for a while. And I'm sorry, but Jericho just is not a face. Like, it doesn't work for me, brother. Like, he's so much better as a heel. I think he's at his best when he's a comedic heel, especially in this stage of his career. The other thing that we're seeing, and I hate to say it though, is like a decline in his work rate. Like, it hasn't been very good for a little bit now. So easier to hide that in tag matches for sure, but just don't know how productive this is for Hook. Well, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry because Kyle O'Reilly is back for real.
I was like, why? What happened?
KOR returned. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of know why, but like I was so emotionally invested in this guy's recovery for some reason from his injury. Like, he's one that it just felt like he really might not come back based on what had happened, and that would have been so sad to me. There's some guys that I'm just like in your fucking camp when I'm in your camp, and he's one of them. And so I was so emotional about his return. I thought he was going to return at the pay-per-view, but I didn't know if he would be cleared, because if you look at his Instagram, like, the journey he had to go on to just be able to like lift his arms again is insane. The idea that he's cleared in the ring is incredible. And we get this promo where he said that he admits that the thought of not wrestling again was the least of his problems when there was a time he couldn't pick up his daughter. And now he wonders if he can hang with the most competitive roster in the sport. A good show to make your claim for that on, because boy, oh boy, did we see that come through today. Says that he's impressed by Brian Keith and he wants to fight him this weekend, basically. And then Roddy Strong says that he turns up and has respect for Kyle, and if he wants to do this on his own, then he should. I'd be cry. I was so happy for Kyle O'Reilly. I love that they kind of sowed the seed with Roddy. They acknowledged it, right? And him versus Brian Keith just feels like a very fun way to come back. We'll start with you, Ryan. What did you think?
So I didn't cry, but you know, it was a very good story, and obviously a true one where you're more concerned with. He was more concerned with his picking up his kid and living his life than he was wrestling, which is a very obviously a true thing, a very emotional thing, which goes into to say how serious his injury was, because wrestling was how he made a living. So the fact that that wasn't even your main concern, it shows like. Not, you know, it shows how serious it is. Like you the thing that was paying for your family's food and all was no longer the issue. It was, can I be among my family and help them out?
Shout out to Tony Khan for paying wrestlers during injuries, but yes, like,
yeah. But my point being, afterwards, he wouldn't.
Yeah,
after his contract is done,
mm-hmm.
He was on a run before he got hurt. I mean, he was having some matches. So if he, you know, I'm not gonna Obviously, if it takes time, I think he can get back there. If he does it right away, great. If not, it takes time to get ring rust. Brian Keith is a great first opponent. Young, got a lot of going for him. It's a lot of fun. And I love that there's something going on with O'Reilly and the Undisputed Kingdom, because they're playing nice and it doesn't seem to work, and in a good way. Like, not like oh, it's not working for me, and then like in a storyline, like something's gonna happen.
Don't be suspicious. No, don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Great call.
Joe, were you crying, or do you have no soul or heart?
I was crying on the inside. I felt like, but
I'll take crying on the inside.
Yeah, it was an emotional return because, we've followed his career for a while now through different promotions and at AEW. So seeing him back in the ring was good. It just goes to show that all these potentially career-ending injuries nowadays, there's still hope for a lot of these wrestlers that they can still come back and wrestle, whether it's Bryan Danielson, whether it's Kyle O'Reilly, whether it's Mercedes, all these different injuries they've had. All these people are coming back now after all these serious injuries, and so that's a really good sign of the advances in medicine and healthcare, that we can get people back. But yeah, him and Brian Keith will be fun to watch on Collider Cast on Saturday night. So you should probably join us to watch Collider Cast on Saturday night.
On Saturday night, right here on the Mark Order podcast at 8 p.m. Eastern. That Collider Cast?
Yes, that would be it. I had you I had you the time zone math in my head.
No, I got you.
But yeah, and then the little interaction with Kyle and the Undisputed Kingdom. Again, we kind of talked about earlier about him questioning whether or not he can do it on his own. He even kind of repeated that at the very end of his promo of just yep, I'm happy to be on my own. I haven't been on my own in a while.
Sure. Yeah, it was I like that too, because it kind of, I like that he didn't just show back up and pretend that he didn't have these pre-existing relationships. I'll put it that way. That feels, even if they don't pay it off for a long time, it's the fact that he came back at that moment, I think is something that's cool and special. So some good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, we love it when you guys support us. If you could leave a thumbs up on this video, there's a whole host of new people in the chat than when I asked you guys that last time. I see you Pieces, Jesse Ozog's in there, 1LT Photo. A lot of you guys. Jesse, of course. So, but would very much appreciate it. It helps people find us in the algorithms, because we are already at our main event, my friends. We get a really, really, really fun match between... Oh, you know what? We do get a quick little backstage here between Jericho and Hook, where Jericho says he needs to know more about Hook, so he's challenging to a match next week. I just try to put most Jericho things out of my mind. But Willow Nightingale versus Riho was probably one of my favorite Riho matches that I have seen maybe ever. Definitely in a long time. I think there's something really special about Willow, and that because she normally has a size advantage, when she fights gals that are Riho size, there's not many that are Riho size, but smaller gals, she really knows how to work with them. She really knows how to sell for them. She really knows how to make things feel and look more believable. I also feel like Riho has adapted some of her moveset to feel a little bit more realistic. I still have issues with the buying in aspect sometimes, just because she's so small and she doesn't normally do a ton of that's the beauty for me of being such a technical wrestling fan, is anybody can do an armbar, right? Anybody can do a leg lock at any size or whatever. That's not as good of an example, but she doesn't have a lot of technical stuff in her arsenal, which to me is the greatest equalizer. She's not going to kick you till you fall to your knees and then voila, you're the same size, right? So I think she's done a good job making her offense a little bit sneakier to make these matches work a little bit better, in my opinion. But this was Willow's moment for sure. We get Riho trying to get a couple shots in here, but Riho doing that, trying to get a couple shots in on Willow, who just drops her with a clothesline and delivers an enormous Dr. Bomb for the victory. You saw her checking on Riho after that Dr. Bomb because you saw her head bounce, and I think that might have been a shoot that Riho was going over there to make sure she was okay. they probably had a like show of respect thing after the match planned, but I think there was a sincere like, oh shit, I fucking dropped her moment. But that celebration is short-lived because the lights go out. I thought maybe Mercedes Moné very quickly joined House of Black, but you actually get Julia Hart, who's standing there with the title, and Sky Blue popping up from behind to attack Willow. Furthering our story here between Willow and them, setting up a TBS title shot in all likelihood. But Mercedes Moné, who changed her outfit because she knew she was showing up here to fight tonight, which I so appreciate, drops Sky Blue with the right hand and Julia with a boot to the head as she nails her finisher. Welcome back to the ring, Mercedes Moné. You looked great tonight. And I love the end of this where it feels like we're leading to a Willow and Mercedes match, right? But you have Willow just showing respect, knowing it's Mercedes night, lifting her arm in the air, and you get Mercedes dancing, Mercedes dancing. The end of this. Very fun to bookend the show with Mercedes appearances, but also productive. And then the TBS title story pictures continue to move forward here. I like that we got that. So really strong closing to the show. Better Riho match than I think we normally get to see, in my opinion. And Willow shining like a star, as she always does. Really fun stuff. Joe, what were your thoughts on our main event here?
I'm with you on Rio looking really good, and I like the fact that this whole night was kind of a way of bookending things. Like before the match, you had Mercedes interact with Riho backstage a little bit, and I noticed that even Riho makes Mercedes look like daunting. Like she looks like you're towering over Riho. And
yeah,
Mercedes is a small person.
That's a good point.
But I like the fact that like she had the whole like I have my eyes on you, and then it paid off later on after the match. And I like the way that they presented Willow, especially for her being the main event. They gave her a nice little vignette, kind of highlighting her accolades as far as winning the strong title and then winning the Owen. They presented her like a big deal. And I think calling out a couple of spots.
You're allowed.
If I do it ahead of time before jumping right into it, I feel like that's asking
you have my
for grace.
blessing.
Yeah,
you have my blessing.
Riho about dropping Willow on her head on that Northern Lights suplex. I was very scared about that one.
Yeah, that was a scary one.
And then the other one was the other thing that I kind of popped for was just the way that Riho sold the pounce.
Oh my God! Yes, I'm glad you called that out because
basically like flying outside being pounced outside the ring. But I think it was good and good to see Willow win clean. It's a week after Riho had beaten Chris, so it kind of elevates that storyline between those two. Plus, it elevates the storyline of Julia and Sky, like you mentioned. So now, hopefully, we go to a Mercedes Riho tag match with Julia and Sky before we get that Mercedes and Willow match.
Yes, and I think it was cool because some of the stuff that Mercedes alluded to, i.e., first woman to main event a pay-per-view, right? That's something that Willow was a part of the first women's main event in ROH, right? So maybe we get that at a special or something. Maybe their match is a main event somewhere, or there's a tag program that main events, and we can kind of like keep that momentum going. But really, really, really liked the way that we closed out the show, and I like the way we opened it. Also, I just gotta say, the Mercedes gear, man, she always fucking brings it with the like her hair saying the CEO is all elite and stuff. Like, my God, this woman is a walking work of art. Really incredible stuff. But that is the end of our show. A really, really strong episode tonight with an incredible debut, obviously, of Mercedes. Very fun stuff. But before we get out of here, what
the fuck?
Oh, don't flick me off, and then I won't ignore your feedback.
Jesus Christ!
What did you think?
If you can feeling better, Ryan, she skipped me on the Lion Hook segment, so it's okay.
I was doing you a favor.
You were. I didn't have much to add for that one.
Jesus, Casey's skipping us all. All I'm going to say is I won't say much because I gave most of my opinion earlier that this was a night to make Willow because making her main event after Mercedes mentioned her, and then having Mercedes come out to save her puts Willow in that level to begin with. If you guys talked about it, you both touched on it, having Mercedes be around the TBS picture is actually a genius move. You already have your title stuff. You don't need to make that something.
Yeah.
But this elevates every single person in the TBS picture and elevates that belt to such a high level. If she's just even around it, like even if she's not going for it, even if she's just around it, it just makes it so much better. So that's, you guys were talking about, that's genius. I
Even
credit
just
her
from
for
the
having.
perspective of Sky Blue's like what 20, and I think Julia Hart's like 22 or something. Like they're getting to work with Mercedes right now. Like that is aces type stuff.
Actually, from a it's not from 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 my from a storyline doesn't do anything. But if you're thinking about it from a wrestling standpoint, you're right, because Tony Storm, Deanna, I mean, they can learn from Mercedes, but they're not going to get as much. Whereas if she's imparting her knowledge on these 20 to 24-year-olds, they're going to get so much more out of it. They're going to learn so much more. It makes and you're building anticipation for when she does turn her head to some of those bigger names.
Agreed. And I also would be remiss if I didn't mention, I should have mentioned this in the recap, the lights out Julia Hart moment. Speaking of people with presence, like Julia just appearing like that, very stark, very, very cool. Great stuff.
Does this 5 foot nothing, 100 pound nothing, little blonde woman have such a creepy presence?
She just owns it. It's unbelievable how much.
Don't all women scare you, Ryan?
Different. It's a different thing. That's just because they're women. This is because she's particularly creepy.
That makes sense. That's why I tried to skip him, is because I didn't want him to be intimidated by my presence here on the show. So.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add, I guess?
No, that's it. If you blow by me. I just want to credit the fact that she had 2 outfits.
Yeah, she showed up to fight. See, this is what I liked, was there was all this talk about she's going to debut in early January. She's going to be at the Rumble. She's going to be at the pay-per-view. She wasn't cleared. So the idea that she's like, I'm here, and now that I'm here, I'm ready to fight, a good call, a good creative decision, in my opinion. But that does conclude our show, where we got everybody's opinions on things, and I did not accidentally skip over anybody, not even a little bit, not once. So I killed it as a host, but maybe if I got promoted from just an employee to a higher title on the show.
Not with this hosting gig. I mean, skipping us. You skipped over your CFO and your EVP.
Okay, the EVP should be stoked, because I was like, you don't have to talk about Chris Jericho. But fair treatment begets better work. That's all I'm saying. But we appreciate everybody who is hanging out in the chat with us tonight. Jesse Ozog, who broke kayfabe, which is just devastating, but the rest of y'all for being here as well. Everyone who was with us earlier in the night, through the night, thank you so much for hanging out with us. A reminder, you can go to prowrestlingtees.com and pick up your Mark Order t-shirt for beautiful designs. I don't know if Merch Madness is still going on, but there's never a bad time. There's never a bad time to pick up a Mark Order t-shirt. You're going to go over there. You're going to be buying your new Mercedes Moné gear, I'm sure. Why don't you pick up a Mark Order shirt and support women while you do it? Because all of the proceeds go back into the show, which has a woman on it. How about that? How do you like them apples?
I love it.
See? Before we get out of here, we're going to plug all the shit that we have. We'll start with Joe. We'll see if I remember to go to Riot after. But Joe, where can the good people find you?
Well, besides Wednesday night here, you can also find me on Saturday night when we do the live watch along for Collider Cast. So we'll have a show this Saturday, and then we're off next week because there's no Collision.
Wild.
I know. And then otherwise on social media @_Asian Joe. And in my bio, you can find a link to my cereal review blog. I haven't got a new cereal review blog, but I did buy some new cereal today.
Ooh, what did you buy?
It's not new, but it's become one of my favorites lately. It's Fruit Loops with marshmallows. So it has a nice, I don't know. I like it. It's my
sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's my new favorite right now when I want to eat unhealthy cereal.
Have you considered comparing cereals to wrestlers?
For instance, give me an example.
Well, I didn't think I'd have to do it.
I mean, Honeycombs is Juice Robinson, right? I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, well, he's not this way anymore. But back in the day, Dominic Mysterio would have just been Cheerios.
Okay.
It's bland.
Okay.
Exactly.
I got you now. I'll think about that.
Just ideas, throwing them out there.
It's your own creative endeavor, okay?
Mhm.
You don't need to.
All right, Kate. Take us home now.
You know what? I was recently told feedback is a gift. So you can
Who
take
told
that
you that?
feedback however you want. I'll tell you off air. It's a very funny story. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and plug your shit?
You can find me on all our socials at Mark Order Pod. I probably forgot to do Instagram tonight. I gotta remember to do that. It's not my thing. You can find me, on our all socials. You can find me every Saturday at 8-ish. We're doing the Collider Cast with Joe, except for that one where they don't have it because of the NCAA. And then if you like history and you like me, check out my history blog here for history.com. I should have a news story coming out relatively soon. Try to pick back up on that more consistently now that some things seem to be calming down. So,
Hell yeah. You can catch me here every Wednesday that I can be here at the Mark Order Podcast. You can catch me on Fightful Select every Monday doing these Sour Graps Raw review. You can catch me on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on the main channel doing NXT, ROH, and SmackDown post show. And I guess it's now fully expected that I am doing a Collision post show over there because we skipped it this week and everybody was like, but you're a Collider. So then we ended up doing it Sunday. But I was celebrating Cassidy Haynes' birthday in Atlantic City. So I'm just happy I survived, to be honest. But follow me at Miss Kate Fabe on social media, on all socials that you could ever dream of. But we thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a thumbs up on your way out and join us for the Collider Cast, as Joe said earlier in the show and in our plugs here. 8 o'clock Eastern. Watch along for Collider. You never know who might be popping in. We have all sorts of fun rotating casts of characters. So join us there. Until then, it's CEO time, baby. Let's go.
This concludes the Mark Order Podcast.